The trend is that more and more attention is being paid to cultural fit. So, everything is paradigm. It's about shifting the paradigm, right?
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome today Nancy Fox, who has many titles. She's a businesswoman, author, top voice on LinkedIn. Let me give you a brief overview of her career. After 20 years of experience as a product manager, vice president of marketing and merchandising, she decided to found and to start her own company in 1999 called the Business Fox to help SMBs to scale up and grow with valuable coaching and impressive results. She then founded a whole community of individuals contributing to numerous podcasts. Make sure to check her website and LinkedIn. And just about a year ago, she started a company called Fractional Connection, enabling SMBs to outsource senior executives and to use their talent to help these businesses grow and truly gain valuable experience. If you're a founder, just a quick parenthesis, if you're a founder, you've got a billion of things to manage, and having the ability to just connect with senior executive and C-level executive will definitely help you to succeed and grow. So as I said, do not forget to check our LinkedIn, as well as checking her book called Network Like a Fox. It's a 5-star book on Amazon, and it will definitely help you to grow and to grow your network and to truly network like an expert. So Nancy, thank you very much for being here with us today.
Well, thank you so much, guys, for having me. I'm so excited to be with you and to have I know we're going to have a great conversation.
Perfect. So let me start with this question, Nancy. With Fractional Connection, but also with your coaching experiences, you've seen a bunch of different environments, a bunch of different companies in terms of people, but also in terms of culture, processes, and in general way of thinking. So how do you adapt to these new people in your coaching or when you match through Fractional Connection, this senior executive with them? Do you think that the success of this kind of operation are coming from a pre-profiling of the people you're going to work with? Or do you see this as a two-way kind of growth in terms of culture and way to think?
So this is really such a great question, because the normal way that when a business owner is looking to source whether it's any talent, whether it be a full-time executive or leader, or somebody that is an interim executive, or somebody that is even a partial time fractional executive, the first thing they do is they think about what skills do they need, what experiences do they have, what companies did they work with. They don't really think about the personality so much. They don't think about the cultural aspect of it so much. Uh, and yet, it's the cultural fit, it's the personality as well, in combination with the experience and skills, that makes or breaks the relationship of an acquired talent. And people will talk about it, leaders talk about it all the time. It needs to be a good cultural fit. But when they're in the middle of the interview or reviewing different candidates for whether it be a fractional executive or a full-time executive, that particular aspect of the candidate is like last on the list. It's the most power. It influences them probably way more than they give it credit for, because at the end of the day, if two candidates have the same exact skills and experiences, and one person they like and one person they don't like, and they don't even put it into words, they're going to go with the person that they feel more comfortable with. So the cultural fit is really important. And one of the things that I want to share with your listeners is that, fractional leaders, when they are engaged in an assignment, their runway to getting integrated into an organization is a lot shorter than a full-time executive. They have to earn trust and engagement and acceptance and participation uh, with their colleagues, because basically they are executives with boots on the ground for a defined period of time every week, or for a certain period of time over the year. And they have to earn that trust very quickly. So they have to have what I call really strong cultural cue, cultural intelligence. It's very, very important that they have that. So it isn't just enough that they have the right expertise and experience. They have to have that ability to integrate and to gain buy-in from their colleagues very quickly.
All right. All right. And especially when you mention, the cultural intelligence and the fact that sometimes, people keep speaking and, telling different things about cultural fit, but do they really have kind of a structure or like a method to measure it? And you mentioned it as well at the beginning of the meeting. But when it comes to KPIs for culture, I feel that it's very difficult to, in a way, capture what would make someone or like a group of people a good cultural fit, and what could be the best possible ways to measure it. In a way, it could be in M&A transactions, but also in real life connections. That's something that we had a lot of pushbacks on it when we talk about culture to people, is that it's not possible to measure it. So why would I invest time and resources at the end of the day to tackle it? That's the
Well,
thing.
it's very true that it is very difficult to measure. But then
Yeah.
again, so is emotional intelligence until we started using assessments.
Yeah.
So, everything is paradigm. It's about shifting the paradigm, right? But at the end of the day, when a deal is closed, the most important factor of what makes the deal successful post close, what makes the acquisition successful post close, is the cultural fit. It's
Yeah.
the thing that derails the when an acquisition is made after the term sheet is signed. It's the one thing that can derail the whole thing. And so, if the fact that we have a struggle to measure it, it presents itself, then we have to find a solution or solutions. And everything can be measurable. We just need to use different criteria. And we have to take opinion. We have to find a way of taking opinion out of it. Because how do you really define, well, I like someone, I don't like someone? Well, you say why you like someone, why you feel comfortable, but it doesn't really end up being a measurable asset until you really look at what are the results. I'll give you an example. This has nothing to do with mergers and acquisitions, but years ago, I was working, I had a client, it was a really big company, and one of the leaders that I was coaching as an executive coach was telling me that she was really struggling with time management. And why she was struggling with time management is because there were so many people, employees standing outside of her door asking her to mentor them. There would be lines outside of her office. And she didn't want to turn them away. She wanted to help them because they were grappling with the culture in the company, grappling with how to deal with executives, grappling with their careers. And they would stand outside her door asking for her input. That's a cultural measurement. Like, how many people want your input? How many people want you to mentor them? It's a signal. It's a measurable signal of what a cultural attribute is in a company. We just need new criteria, and we need ways to measure what a cultural blend, what a cultural fit actually turns into in terms of measurable results.
All right. This is very true, and as well, one thing that we had, when we were talking with different people, especially about and on this question of KPIs and how to measure it. One person that we were talking to actually said to us, sometimes in a very specific deal, and this is very common as well. Even the people who are working directly in the HR department of a specific organization, for example, are not aware of a specific deal. So why would a specific leader or like corporate development team member invest time and resources to trying to assess something which at the end of the day cannot really be put on the paper? So it's a pushback that we had. How would you build upon that?
It's so interesting that you're bringing that up. I've spoken to a number of M&A attorneys now, and other integration teams. So what we're hearing now is that the cultural fit is being looked at the due diligence stage for the first time. And we know, all of us in M&A know, that a really high percentage of the deals will not ultimately come to fruition. It's part of there are many things that could derail the deal even at the 11th hour. And yet, if you don't start putting something in place during the due diligence phase, then you wind up having a bigger cost at the end after the deal is signed. So it's a risk. It is a risk. But the bigger risk is, what if the deal does close, and then you wind up having spend all of that effort, all of the money, and hundreds of thousands of dollars and maybe even millions on closing the deal, and then it doesn't work because of these really preventable problems. So the question is, where do you want to deal with the risk, before or after, and what's the price you're willing to pay? So the trend is that more and more attention is being paid to cultural fit during the due diligence, and even during the while due diligence is going on. The integration teams are starting to be put into place, but it's challenging because sometimes you don't want to reveal the deal is being worked on to all the people in the company. Of course, you don't want that, because it's private. It's proprietary until for a lot of reasons. So of course we need to protect a lot of the confidentiality, and it's tricky waters. That's true. On the other hand, it's really a mess. We're working on a book right now that's dealing with the post-acquisition after effects, which are very disastrous. And we're working on the human side of it, the cultural side of it, for this very, very reason. So, where do you want to experience your risk, before or after, and which is more costly?
One other aspect that we faced as well is, when a company, when a specific team wants to embark on this human journey, I would say, in trying to understand and to assess the cultural elements of a specific company, sometimes they lack either the time or the resources to do it. And one thing as well that we have noticed is, and what's your opinion as well on that, is it's a two-sided story. It's not just assessing the culture of a specific target, it's also assessing your own culture and how you behave to things, how you behave in times of turmoil and everything, just to understand how these two components can be merged together. It's not just one kind of an assessment, it's in the two directions. You need to understand yourself first, then understand the target's culture and everything, and then trying to cook the recipe of a successful merger, I would say.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because what I've been hearing is a very important word that is being used quite a bit with mergers and acquisitions and private equity experts and leaders. And the word is humility. So this is a word we rarely heard of years ago. And the view about the word humility is that when a company is acquiring another company, in the past, it would often be, we're your new bosses. We're going to tell you how to do it. We're going to show you the right way. Whatever you've been doing before, not so good. We're going to show you the better way. And it was sort of a very directive relationship. It was a boss-employee relationship. And if you're making an acquisition, you're acquiring an entity. I mean, you bought it for a reason. There's something there that you found valuable. So to dismiss the value of the viewpoints of the leadership of a company that you acquired, it seemed counterintuitive, right? So today, I think private equity firms and mergers and acquisitions entities are starting to realize, they're starting to realize that the word humility will actually play better than being directive and more authoritative. They're using the word humility to really understand the people and the viewpoints and the experiences of the people within the organizations that they're acquiring. And it takes emotional intelligence to be able to be human, to have humility to the point where you're listening and trying to understand people versus trying to change them and teach them and show them that your way is better. So I think that word, it's being used consistently throughout a lot of M&A and private equity firms as a guiding light to show that we can actually get more with being humble than we will with being smarter than
Okay.
being
Okay.
the smartest guys being the smartest guys in the room.
Okay, that's very interesting as well. And you kept saying two things, actually, that PE firms are starting to realize the importance of this cultural assessment in a way. So we would like to have your opinion on that specifically. Do you think, and if that's the case, how this idea has evolved throughout your career, for example? Have you seen this specific shift from PE, executives or like people working in these kind of engagements and transactions? How has it evolved? Based on our understanding and with the different research that we have done, we have seen that this term of cultural assessment dates back to the late 70s, late 80s as well. But it has evolved specifically. It's not something that completely jumped out of the screen in a matter of days and weeks and months. So how would you say it has evolved?
Well, I think we're still evolving it, but look how long it took. I think what most companies are very familiar with are personality assessments, right? So when we make a hire, we rarely would hire someone without some kind of a personality assessment, which, I mean, Myers-Briggs has been around a million years, like, early, like 1930 or something like that. So personality assessments and performance assessments of the people, individuals, has been around a very, very long time. Predictive index and DISC and Myers-Briggs and all kinds of assessments now, this strengths finders and just all kinds of personality assessments, right? Very accepted. But when it comes to cultural assessments, it's still very rare. It's still very unusual. I think more since the mergers and acquisitions field it's expanded dramatically since 2010. I mean, it's boomed and it's going to continue. So I think when companies are starting to blend and merge, and there are all kinds of, in some ways acquisitions can be one company's culture is going to be the dominant culture, and it's accepted that way. Or sometimes there is a blending, or sometimes they're operating side by side, so there's no need to blend the cultures. So there are different ways of different approaches that are being made. But I think from a culture, when companies are actually acquiring another company, there are two things happening. If you're a private equity firm, you have your own firm culture, and now you are now going to be guiding your portfolio, your portcos in culture, or you're trying to understand how these cultures are going to work together. So there are two different cultures trying to figure out how to interact with each other. That's one way. So clearly there needs to be some kind of evaluation done, whether it be official as an assessment or, it's just going to be, personal interpretation, which really doesn't work. So we need more data. And that is one thing that I think is going to be a real asset or a real influencer. Firms that are acquiring other companies, they are hungry for data. And we know that when the acquired company rarely has the kind of data or the kinds of resources for capturing data that private equity firms or mergers and acquisitions firms are looking for. So I think that's going to be a real benefit to the cultural assessment tools. Right now we are, for our own purposes, as we're looking to support private equity firms in the utilization of fractional leadership, we are definitely looking at the utilization of cultural assessments as a tool to demonstrate the value proposition, right? But I think it makes so much sense. And I think, let's put it this way. If you've had a number of different acquisitions that haven't turned into, you've been able to sell them in the allotted time because value creation hasn't happened to your expectations, you're going to be more encouraged to maybe do some cultural assessment to see where the shortfall was. It isn't only in the numbers, it's in the people.
Yeah, in the people and in the observations as well. Sometimes it reminds me of a story that we. It's a funny story because we are talking, to a potential partner a few weeks ago, and this person said to us, if you really want to understand if two companies can be a good fit, once merged together, you need to observe people and observe the settings as well of the office, and especially go to the restrooms. Try to see if the restrooms are clean or not clean, and depending on the different layout of the things, how people are cleaning it and everything, you can it's a data point that you can use to actually have a bigger picture of the thing. So I don't know, it was funny to us at the moment.
Yeah, I listened to a number of podcasts and they were talking about, well, how do you know if it's a good fit? Well, first of all, I think you need some time, and you need to meet more than just the top C-suite people. That's the other piece. We've been talking to a number of firms, and what they talk about actually looking at the culture, not just at the C-suite level, but the cascading of employees all the way down, because really the culture is truly, the heart of the culture is at the levels below C-suite, director, manager, and even staff. Not just even staff. In fact, let me revise how I just said that. Staff is really important. They're critical. They are the culture of a company. They are the heart and soul of a company, because at those essential levels, they're supporting everybody at their own level and above. And if there's a lot of infighting or gossiping or political strife at the lower levels, you can bet your bottom dollar that it's at the top levels too.
I just got a question on this. So how to ensure that the choice that is going to make when you're merging two different companies will completely, it's hard to say, but will completely reflect the choice of all these employees, all the staff and so on? Because you've seen some companies, I guess, it's also companies where you have kind of a very toxic environment. Well, the C-level layer is completely disconnected from anyone below it. So sometimes it will absolutely advantage and go in the C-level direction, this choice of merging the companies, but not necessarily in the employee, what the employee have in mind, what the employee have defined in terms of culture and so on. So how to fill this gap?
Well, that's an interesting thing, because let's just say a private equity firm is looking at an acquisition, right? And so they're meeting for maybe even a long period of time, the C-suite executives, and maybe even at the vice presidential level too, right? And they're getting to know them, they're visiting, they're going back and forth, they're having dinners, they're going to each other's companies, and yet a private equity firm, very often, they don't have the bandwidth to investigate or to get to know or to build the relationships with people below the C-suite. They're not large organizations unless they're a very, very large firm. So that is where they depend on outsourced resources like you, like us, to help them get to know different layers of a company, to build that kind of cultural examination, exploration, advice, mentoring kind of experience, to help them assess how good a fit is this, not just at the surface level, but below. And what are some of the techniques and strategies that we should be using to make the cultural fit. Let's just say the cultural fit isn't quite perfect, but it's good. It just isn't good enough. What do we need to do to make it right so that it will really thrive post-acquisition?
Very true, very true. And one additional thing, when it comes to observation techniques and everything, to actually feed the model and feed the model with data points, is sometimes everything just relies on what is typically called and named, the financial bias, meaning you just see a specific deal throughout the financials of it, but you keep everyone outside of it, meaning the staff, of course, but also the manager, line managers, and higher level of people in the executive chain. And just to tackle that, one thing that we have noticed as well that could be useful in some kind of deals would be to take everyone and actually integrate the integration team as early as possible in the timeline of a deal, and especially during the due diligence. And there's a book about it called, Agile M&A by Kaizen Patel. I don't know if you read this, but it's very, very interesting because it tackles this very specific element about how to fill this gap between the two worlds.
So that's an interesting point that you're making. And I've read a lot about this, of course, and integration teams. And some private equity firms have what's called an IMO, the Integration Management Office. They've created an entire office dedicated to putting the integration teams not only together on both sides, but executing them and overseeing them. And then there's, sometimes some firms have actually engaged a human capital officer to ensure that the right people are in the right seats after the acquisition.
Okay.
But not across the board. It is only right now. It's usually in the bigger companies. They're starting to create these teams more. I mean, you mentioned the integration team. Sometimes there isn't even an integration team, or who's in charge of the integration team and who's doing the evaluation of how well it's working. See, because at the end of the day, the purpose of an acquisition, certainly on the private equity side, is to raise the value of a company so that there's an end exit, right? That they're going to sell this company at some point in the future, 5 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever. So if they haven't raised the value where there's a really good exit, then they haven't done their jobs. But to the investors. However, at the end of the day, what's going on in that 3 year, 5 year, 7 year period is what's actually going to be instrumental in raising the value. How do you measure that? It's all along the process. And so there's usually the integration team only takes place right after the deal is done, maybe a few months, maybe a year, but that's not, maybe, it requires more than that. Who's deciding that? It's changing as we speak. And I think that's really where what you're looking at for cultural integration is not a once and done. That's the key to the whole thing. The assessment is part one. Implementing what you've learned from the assessment that's the critical piece.
And this is definitely what we also see, not on the cultural side, but on the technical side. When you want to understand, do you have any specific issues in your tech stack and everything? You do an assessment, but it's not. It's just one part of the story. Then you act upon it just to remove everything that you have seen. If you had maybe just one last thing to add, one piece of advice to give to the listeners, what would you say to them when it comes to cultural fit, cultural assessment, everything? What would you say to them?
So I would say that it is very clear that every firm has their own deal thesis, and they are very comfortable. They've spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money on creating the right deal thesis, and it's been proven out. So they know that part of the equation from when it comes to deal making. There needs to be a paradigm shift. We're in a very different world today. People. It's very interesting. There's a lot of complaining that there is a dearth of talent. So when a company is acquired and they want to make some changes, the automatic assumption is that we should take some people out, let them go, and bring in new people. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a way of keeping the talent that you've had prior to the acquisition, and leveraging them and supporting them and augmenting them and complementing them with fractional talent. But it's a new way of looking at it. So new creative talent solutions need to happen. New shifts in thinking need to happen when it comes to culture. So what I would say is private equity is very sure-footed about the way they do things. I would say that my and I want to say this very carefully. I would suggest, how about, let's just say this, I would suggest that there's a new way of looking at things, and that out of this new way of looking at things and re-looking at your own consistent processes, out of that can come way new solutions and way new and superior outcomes in a shorter period of time. Value creation can really be can emerge if you're looking at things in a new way.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Like truly, we're just coming to an end on this podcast. We're up in terms of time. So thank you again for this interview. It was extremely valuable. We talk about a lot of emotional intelligence and how it comes into play during M&As, transactions, like to make sure like those to guarantee the success of this deal. Make sure to go check, first of all, like the book, as you can see, like in the background, Network Like a Fox, but also Fractional Collection. If you're a founder of an SMB or working in SMB, it's extremely valuable to bring into your daily life, into play a C-level executive, like to outsource these talents, bring like a lot of experience and truly boost your different activities. So thank you, Nancy. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm very honored and very privileged to be speaking with you, because I think what you're working on is so essential, so valuable, and will make a lot of people's lives so much better in their careers, because they're living this culture day in and day out. So thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.